And then, boom, you see this little freckle-faced, red-haired kid with glasses. That's the monster that did it? It can't be.
13-year-old Eric Smith was arraigned in Village Court this morning.
A murder case that has left a small New York State community in shock.
The only thing more shocking than the crime was the identity of the killer.
Meet the most dangerous kids in prison. When we think about criminals behind bars, we picture hardened adults with decades of choices that led them there. But what happens when the person in handcuffs hasn't even reached high school? From a boy who slept above his victim's body for a week, to a freckle-faced teen whose rage turned deadly. These cases tore apart the boundary between innocence and evil. So join us as we reveal the most dangerous kids ever imprisoned, and the haunting truth behind the crimes that stole their childhood forever. Joshua Phillips. In November 1998, the quiet neighborhood of Lakewood, Florida became a search zone. 8-year-old Maddie Clifton had vanished, and hundreds of volunteers combed through the yards and woods looking for any sign of her. 14-year-old Joshua Phillips joined the search parties. He walked alongside his parents, distributing flyers with Maddie's face. He lived directly across the street from the missing girl. Nobody suspected the truth. 7 days after Maddie disappeared, Joshua's mother noticed a damp spot spreading beneath his waterbed. When she investigated, she discovered something that would haunt that community forever. Maddie's body had been hidden under the frame the entire week. According to Phillips' own account, he had accidentally hit Maddie in the eye with a baseball while they were playing. Terrified of his reportedly abusive father's reaction, he panicked. The details that followed painted a far darker picture than a simple accident. What makes this case particularly unsettling is the duality Phillips displayed. By day, he searched for his victim alongside devastated neighbors. By night, he slept meters above her concealed remains. Child psychologists who later examined the case struggled to reconcile the quiet, average student with what had occurred. Phillips was tried as an adult and sentenced to life without parole. Years later, prosecutors involved in the case expressed regret about pursuing such a severe sentence for a 14-year-old. In 2017, following a Supreme Court ruling against mandatory life sentences for juveniles, Phillips was resentenced, but received life again, eligible for review after 25 years. The question lingers: was this truly an accident that spiraled beyond control, or something more calculated? But that was only the beginning of cases that would challenge our understanding of juvenile crime. Eric Smith. August 2nd, 1993. 4-year-old Derek Roby kissed his mother goodbye and walked alone to summer camp for the first time. 1 block, same side of the street. He never arrived. 13-year-old Eric Smith had spotted Derek that morning. Smith, who had endured relentless bullying for his red hair, freckles, and thick glasses, lured the younger boy into nearby woods in Savannah, New York. What happened there shocked investigators. When police interviewed Smith days later, his detailed knowledge of the crime raised immediate suspicions. He eventually confessed. During his trial, Smith admitted something chilling. In that moment, instead of being the one hurt, he was hurting someone else, and it felt good. The media dubbed him the freckle-faced killer. His case became a national sensation. How could someone so young, with such an innocent appearance, commit such an act? Prosecutors argued that Smith was a budding serial predator who needed to be removed from society permanently. Smith was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to 9 years to life. He was denied parole 10 consecutive times over nearly 3 decades. Parole boards consistently noted his lack of remorse. Then, something shifted. At his 11th hearing in 2021, now in his 40s, Smith spoke differently. He expressed genuine understanding of what he had taken from Derek's family. He discussed his engagement and plans for ministry work, the board granted his release in February 2022. Smith's release sparked fierce debate. Had he genuinely transformed? Or had he simply learned what the board wanted to hear? For Derek's parents, no answer would ever bring peace. Lionel Tate, July 28, 1999. Kathleen Grossett Tate, a Florida state trooper, was babysitting 6-year-old Tiffany Unick while preparing for an overnight shift. She sent the children downstairs to play and went upstairs to rest. Roughly 45 minutes later, her 12-year-old son Lionel came upstairs with devastating news. Tiffany wasn't breathing. The injuries were catastrophic. An autopsy revealed a crushed skull, broken ribs, more than 30 internal bruises, and a shredded liver. The force suggested an attack, not an accident. Lionel claimed he was imitating professional wrestling moves he'd seen on television. Prosecutors offered a plea deal, 3 years in juvenile detention, 1 year house arrest, 10 years probation. Lionel and his mother refused, confident a jury would see it as accidental. They were wrong. In January 2001, at age 14, Lionel was sentenced to life without parole for first-degree murder. He became the youngest person in modern U.S. history to receive that sentence. International human rights organizations condemned the decision. The trial judge stated that Lionel's actions were cold, callous, and indescribably cruel. But even the prosecutors who secured his conviction later joined calls for leniency. They argued the justice system had failed to properly assess his mental competency before trial. In 2004, an appeals court overturned the conviction. Lionel accepted the original plea deal and was released on probation. But the story didn't end there. Within months, he violated probation. Then came armed robbery. The second chances ran out. Today, Lionel remains incarcerated, scheduled for release in 2031. Jordan Brown, February 20th, 2009. 26-year-old Kenzie Hook, 8 months pregnant, was found unresponsive in her Pennsylvania home. Her 4-year-old daughter had discovered her. Within hours, police arrested 11-year-old Jordan Brown, the son of Kenzie's fiancée. They charged him as an adult with first-degree murder, claiming he had used his youth model shotgun before boarding the school bus that morning. Jordan was held in an adult jail before being transferred to juvenile detention. He spent the next 7 years behind bars as the legal system debated his fate. In 2012, a juvenile court found him delinquent of first-degree murder. But something felt wrong about the case from the beginning. No DNA or fingerprint evidence connected Jordan to the crime. No witnesses placed him at the scene. The prosecution's theory relied entirely on the fact that Jordan lived in the home and owned a shotgun. Appeals court began dismantling the case. They noted that police had failed to secure the crime scene properly, contaminating potential evidence. They questioned why investigators hadn't thoroughly pursued other suspects, including an ex-boyfriend with a history of threatening Kenzie. In July 2018, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court issued a stunning ruling. Insufficient evidence. Jordan's conviction was overturned. At age 20, having lost nearly half his life to the justice system, he was finally free. Jordan's father described the aftermath. Half of his life was spent in this system. To me, that's an issue. The case exposed critical flaws in how the system handles children accused of serious crimes. In 2024, Jordan sued the officers who arrested him, though a jury ultimately ruled in favor of the police. Jordan's story poses difficult questions about how quickly we judge, how thoroughly we investigate, and what happens when we get it catastrophically wrong. Yet even this case wasn't the youngest or most disturbing in juvenile justice history. Mary Bell. May 25th, 1968, the day before her 11th birthday. 4-year-old Martin Brown was found lifeless in an abandoned house in Newcastle, England. Initially, authorities suspected an accident. 2 months later, 3-year-old Brian Howe disappeared. His body was discovered with deliberate injuries that revealed the truth. These weren't accidents. Someone had intentionally taken these children's lives. And that someone was a child herself. 10-year-old Mary Bell had committed the first act. She would be 11 for the second. Between the incidents, Mary and her friend Norma left notes at a nursery school confessing to Martin's death. Police dismissed them as a tasteless prank. Mary even attended Brian's funeral, offering to help his sister search for him before his body was found. When investigators finally pieced together the evidence, they faced an unprecedented situation. The brutality of the crimes suggested an adult perpetrator, but the evidence pointed to children. Mary displayed a disturbing lack of remorse during questioning, calmly providing details only the perpetrator would know. At trial, psychiatric evaluations revealed early signs of psychopathy. Mary's background painted a tragic picture. A teenage mother who worked as a prostitute, alleged attempts by her mother to harm her, and reported sexual abuse. The court convicted Mary of manslaughter due to diminished responsibility. Her friend Norma was acquitted. Mary was sentenced to detention at Her Majesty's pleasure, essentially an indefinite term. She served 12 years before being released in 1980 at age 23 with a new identity. Today, she lives under lifelong anonymity, protected by a court order that extends to her daughter and granddaughter. If these stories left you questioning what justice really means, tell us in the comments. Hit like, share this video, and subscribe for more powerful stories that explore the hidden side of human nature.